Today, everybody, we are going to be talking about the story behind my 2 Glory World Title victories. I've had many requests to go through and talk in detail about my title fights. That episode will take far too long for the amount of time I have tonight, so we're going to focus on these 2 belts, but there's some good stories laid in with the victories to getting these dreams, which I always wanted. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me tonight. I have a little bit of a studio change up because there's no carpets on the floor. The walls have been ripped down because they were wallpapered before. It was super ugly, but we're getting everything redone here by tomorrow. It should be taken care of, and then I'll go back to a better studio setup. But for tonight, I still wanted to be able to connect with everybody and just have a little bit of story time. Now, my time is limited tonight, so I'm gonna keep this relatively short, and we're gonna start off with my Glory title fight, my very first one in Dubai. One of the very cool things that Glory did on their belts was not only have a spectacular front, but when you turn around to the back, there's actually these little plaques here that actually say Featherweight World Champion Dubai, and then it states the date, 3rd of April, 2015. Let's talk about what it took to win this and some stories that happened in the process. So first off, I got this Glory title shot by winning a 4-man contender tournament where you had to fight 2 times in one night. The winner of that was scheduled to go forward and fight for the Glory title. The person who was the #1 ranked fighter was Mosab Amrani. The 2 of us went up for the inaugural Glory title. Mosab earned his place in this position by beating 2-time K1 Max champion and Glory 8-man champion Yuta Kubo and delivering a vicious body hook to Liam Harrison and putting him out in the first round. Definitely a deserving guy to be fighting for this first Glory title. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about the prep leading up to this because I was super nervous. Like Mosab, he was dangerous. He was rolling through guys. He had a crazy powerful punch. And what I did religiously almost for so much of the 10-week training camp was watch his fights. Not so much to get a better sense of what he was going to do, but to relax and start calming down at seeing him perform, because initially every time I watched him I would get really nervous just thinking about going up against this guy. So my wife was actually studying for the MCAT at the time, and as we would sit in the coffee shop or in the condo where we were living, we would sit down side by side. She would do her MCAT studies and I would watch Mosab Amrani fights, probably about 1 hour, 3 to 4 times per week. That's probably sounding a little bit obsessive, and it was, but the further I got in camp, the more I went, I see weaknesses. I can beat this guy. He's not invincible. So that was part of my prep, very serious. Leading up, you could tell that I wasn't joking around, how much I wanted this belt. Now let's talk about the trip over, because that is a story. We started in Victoria, BC, where we live. We shot down to Seattle. We're talking 20-minute flight, but we started going layover. Okay, that takes a while. Then we shot over to Washington, DC, almost on the other side of the United States. I believe that's like a 4 or 5 hour flight. Then from there, we went all the way over to Dubai for a 13-hour flight. Once we arrived there, we still have the trek to get to the hotel. All said and done, it was 30+ hours of travel time. Once we got there, I was pretty much holed up as I usually am in my hotel room, lie low, spend as much time as I can sleeping in between the obligations you have for Glory photo shoots, video shoots, etc. There was a crazy sandstorm. One day I remember waking up being a little disoriented from the jet lag. The room was kind of a glowing red and I didn't know what was happening. I opened the drapes and I'm like, whoa, it looks like the apocalypse out here. But all said and done, my memories from this event were pretty much in the hotel room, cutting the weight, not really seeing too much of Dubai until after, and meeting Mosab Amrani for the first time. And he shook my hand and he had a pretty gentle, a little sort of weak handshake. I never squeeze anybody's hand to try and show them how strong I am, but I always squeeze mine in anticipation of them trying to crush it, just to make sure my hand's not loose. And he had just kind of a little sort of flimsy handshake when I met him. He was super polite. After weigh-ins, we both got off the scales. He brought me a glass of water, poured one for himself, poured one for me, gave it to me first. Just very, very nice guy. Now, most of you know how the fight played out. We went the full 5 rounds. He won the first. I won all the remaining 4. After the fight, Mosab and I were sitting down watching the main event. We were co-main event. We were watching the main event. And he came over and he just said, "How did you not go down from those body shots?" Because he tagged me 10 or 15 times. Like I said, he had previously KO'd Liam Harrison with a body shot. He probably looked at my physique and went, yeah, this little skinny guy's not going to be able to hold up to my power shots. And he hit hard, no doubt. But I actually did a video the other day talking about how I maintain core tightness and still breathe, never relax the stomach. You can check that out for sure. It'll help give you some tips on how I even surprised Mosab and was able to stay on my feet even though he had a killer body shot. This belt was just the most amazing thing. So much so that this story, which I've already told on the channel, but I'm going to tell it again because if you haven't heard it, it might make you laugh. I woke up the day after winning the belt. I was laying in bed, I had my eyes closed, and for some reason I thought for a moment that I dreamed the whole previous day. And I lay there in bed going, was that a dream or did it really happen? Did I actually fight? Oh, I don't want to open my eyes because if I open my eyes and none of it was true, now I actually have to go through the whole experience of going to the event, warming up, fighting, hopefully winning the belt. And then I open my eyes, I look to the side, I'm like, yes, my belt is there. I won. I was so happy and so excited. After that, we got to see Dubai, got to see the tallest building in the world. Amazing trip, amazing belt, obviously, and one of the proudest moments of my life. Now let's move on to glory belt number 2. This one, even though it looks the exact same, just has a slightly different thing on the back here. It just says Virginia, USA, 22nd of July, 2016. So the following year, I had lost this belt, or the other one, to Adam Chuck. And then I went back and I had a rematch with him, but this time on my side of the world. The last time it had been in Milan, and that trip over there wrecked me. Not to the sense that I was going, oh, my legs feel all weird, but during the weight cut, I had my glands swell up so much so that my face came down like this and then they went out. And I was so confused what was happening and I didn't want to eat anything. And it was a very hard fight against him. He's a very tough opponent, but not having an ideal weight cut. I remember getting out of the bath and being so dizzy, laying down, that my head kind of bounced off the tile floor. So this time I went, you know what? I almost beat him last time. It was so close. If I just have the advantage of not having to cut weight and we're on my soil, we're on North American soil, I think I can get this victory. And keep in mind that Adam Chuck, after he beat me, he defended it. He jumped up in weight a couple times. He beat people at a higher weight class, came back down. He had not lost in glory. He was looking untouchable. I contacted Glory, said, look guys, he only just beat me by the tiniest little margin. Nobody else is coming close to touching this guy. You got to give me an immediate title rematch. And we got to Virginia. Again, pretty big trip, even though it's on the same continent. Still took something like 18 hours to get there with all the stops and the waiting at the airports for the next flight. The most interesting thing about this one was the fact that Adam Chuck is just a very hard guy to like. I'm sure he's a lovely dude, but he doesn't speak a lot of English and he's never super social, and he always has a little smirk on his face, which just always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, I don't know if this guy's kind of laughing at me or what's happening. Never voluntarily really coming up and shaking hands the way most other people do. So we didn't really see each other much leading up to the event. And then, aside from making weight. And then when it's time to go to the venue, we walk onto the elevator, going down to the lobby to meet everybody to drive there, and Adam Chuck is on the elevator. So we're taking it down, he's right beside me, we're just kind of like that, not wanting to make eye contact, I'm just gonna ignore him. It was a hard fight. and one I was very proud of in the sense I got the victory, but not one in terms of being proud of the actual performance of the fight, being like a contender of the year. My fight with Mosab Amrani was nominated for fight of the year out of 3 and only 3 choices, or 3 picks from Glory. This other one against Adam Chuck, we just don't have a style that meshes. It was not pretty. I got a knockdown in the second round, which I was very proud of because I don't think even after that anybody was knocking him down. I was definitely the first. But, you know, it just goes to show you, you don't always get beautiful fights. Sometimes people's styles just do not mesh, and you've got to fight through anyway and just get the victory. This was a fight where I went, you know what, I cannot beat this guy with my normal style, pressuring forward. So we had to ease back just a little bit, take our time, a little bit slower. I didn't like it, but we knew that just that solid pressure was not the key to victory. The interesting story out of this fight was Adam Chuck's low kicks. He was low kicking me in the hip as opposed to the thigh. In the fight, I didn't even notice it. Shortly after the fight, I didn't notice it. I had a little cut because we banged heads, so I was waiting for about half an hour to get stitched up. I got to my feet after that and I started walking to the post-fight interview, and I went, oh, that's tight. By the time we got back to the hotel, my leg was not staying in place. Like I had a little shake, and my cornermen, my brother and my pad holder both said, you need to get in an ice bath. So they filled up the tub, they got a bunch of ice. I got in there, I was feeling so awful. You know, I had the cut on my head. I had just had a really hard fight, and my leg was, or my hip was so swollen that legitimately the next day, my shorts would not fit on me unless they had stretchy bands. If I had a short that was, you know, made for a certain waist size, like a 32, they would not fit. It was so swollen. This pain lasted 1 month. I got back home. I tried to go to bed every night. I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning with crazy pain, go to the washroom because I thought I was going to throw up. I would not. But it just goes to show you how tough you can be in certain areas. Like if somebody kicks me here over and over and over, I'm used to the impact. Change up the position a little bit, you know, maybe start hitting me back here where I never take impact, and you just feel like a little child who's never been hit before, and you're going, oh my gosh, it's just unpleasant. So that hip there was an interesting story out of this whole fight. These 2 glory belts are definitely the highlights of my career, along with defeating Lerdsila and the win over Kevin Ross for the Bellator belt. But we're not going to cover that tonight because I got to get to bed. I have lots of other things to do around the house tomorrow. I will keep putting out videos and hopefully have this whole thing set back up again soon. Guys, thank you for joining me today. I hope you just enjoyed these little stories. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like. If you have not already, join the channel and get subscribed. As always, guys, train hard. I will see you back here soon for another episode.